Judge, order in the chamber. This session of the Committee on Oversight and Accountability will come to order. Today's hearing addresses one question: whether the principle of equal justice is being upheld in America's oversight process. Representative Jim Jordan, you may begin. Jim Jordan, leaning forward, voice sharp, "Thank you, Your Honor." Let's make this simple. What we're seeing today isn't oversight, it's overreach. It's the weaponization of justice. When one political party uses federal agencies to target parents, whistleblowers, and political opponents, that's not equal justice. That's political persecution. Jasmine Crockett snaps back before the judge can speak, and when elected officials pretend to care about oversight but turn a blind eye to corruption in their own ranks, that's not justice either. Congressman Jordan, that's hypocrisy dressed in outrage. Jim Jordan, hypocrisy? I'm talking about facts. The DOJ has two standards, one for people connected to Democrats and one for the rest of America. The American people see it. They see how investigations vanish when they get too close to certain names. Jasmine Crockett. Interrupts like the names that show up in your own campaign donor list. Jim Jordan glares, "You're out of line." Judge, Representative Crockett, you'll have your full time to respond. Jasmine Crockett calms, then stands. "Thank you, Your Honor." Congressman Jordan talks about weaponization, but what he's really angry about is accountability. Oversight means facing the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. You call it weaponization because it's easier to yell "witch hunt." Then admit the truth. Some people in power don't want transparency, they want immunity. Jim Jordan, and what about when the so-called oversight only goes one direction? You sat there defending a Justice Department that ignored evidence, deleted files, and treated whistleblowers like enemies of the state. Don't talk to me about transparency. You're defending a cover-up. Jasmine Crockett leans forward, fierce. "Cover-up." Congressman, I sat on this committee while you turned hearings into circus acts, waving papers, shouting conspiracy theories, and cutting mics when the truth didn't fit your narrative. If there's a cover-up, it's the one you stage every time you refuse to hear inconvenient facts. The room murmurs, tension high. The judge raises a hand. Judge, order. Representatives, this court will have structure. Congressman Jordan, please continue with your evidence. Jim Jordan, fine evidence. Let's talk about the double standard of justice. The DOJ raided the home of a former president, but when classified documents were found in the garage of another, suddenly it's a mistake. If we're talking about equal justice, where's the equal treatment? Jasmine Crockett shakes her head. That's a false equivalence, and you know it. Intent matters, cooperation matters, facts matter. You can't scream double standard while ignoring the difference between obstruction and compliance. Jim Jordan, the American people don't buy that legal double talk. They see elites walk free while everyday citizens face the full force of the law. You talk about intent. I'm talking about consequences. Jasmine Crockett, consequences. Congressman, let's talk about your own consequences. You've spent years attacking investigators, undermining the FBI, and sowing distrust in the very system that keeps our democracy intact. That's not oversight, that's sabotage. Jim Jordan, sabotage. Oversight is questioning abuse of power. What you call sabotage, I call protecting Americans from a government that spies on them, censors them, and punishes dissent. Jasmine Crockett, sarcastic tone. "Oh, please, protecting Americans. You protect political allies, not Americans. You twist facts, spread misinformation, and then cry foul when reality doesn't match your headline." Judge, gavel bangs. That's enough. Representative Crockett, maintain decorum. A long pause. Cameras zoom in. The crowd waits. Jasmine Crockett, Composed now, Your Honor. Equal justice is not about political convenience. It's about whether the law applies equally, whether you're a billionaire or a janitor, a Democrat or a Republican. Oversight is not a weapon, it's a mirror, and some people don't like what they see when they look in it. Jim Jordan leans in coldly. The only mirror we need is truth, and truth doesn't need to be dressed in partisan colors. The public sees what's happening, and they're losing faith. Equal justice is dead when only one side gets judged. Jasmine Crockett points across the table. Equal justice dies when people like you convince the public that truth itself is partisan. Crowd murmurs again. Reporters scribble. Judge, both sides will have an opportunity for rebuttal in the next session. This chamber stands in recess for 10 minutes. Gavel slams. The lights dim slightly as aides whisper and cameras flash. Jasmine Crockett exhales, looking steady. Jim Jordan adjusts his papers, jaw tight, preparing for round 2. Judge, the court is back in session. Representatives, we will proceed with your rebuttals. Congressman Jordan, you may begin. Jim Jordan stands, voice tight but deliberate. Thank you, Your Honor. I listened to Representative Crockett call Oversight a mirror, but what she won't admit is that mirror's been cracked by politics. The DOJ, the FBI agencies once respected, are now tools for narrative control. Parents at school board meetings were labeled domestic threats. Journalists were spied on, but when government leaks favored Democrats, suddenly that's freedom of the press. The hypocrisy couldn't be louder. Jasmine Crockett, calm, arms-folded congressman, you keep repeating weaponization, as if it's a magic word that erases your side's actions. The same FBI attack also protected members of your party when threats rose. The same Justice Department you call bias-charged Democrats, Republicans, and independents alike. Oversight means acknowledging facts, not rewriting them. Jim Jordan, facts. Let's talk about facts. Multiple whistleblowers testified that the DOJ interfered in investigations related to high-profile individuals. And what did your side do? Tried to discredit them, threatened them. That's intimidation, not justice. Jasmine Crockett, leaning forward, eyes sharp. What you call whistleblowers were individuals caught sharing partial information, selectively edited, funded by political groups. Oversight isn't a theater, Congressman, but you've turned it into one. You drag people through the mud, misquote reports, and call it investigation. You're not uncovering truth, you're auditioning for cable news. A few gasps ripple through the audience. Jim Jordan clenches his jaw, pacing slightly. Jim Jordan, you think this is about me. This is about the American people who don't trust the system anymore. When Hunter Biden gets a sweetheart deal and political allies face no consequence, you expect citizens to believe justice is blind. Jasmine Crockett cuts in, voice rising. You're repeating propaganda lines. The courts, not Congress, decide guilt. You and your allies spin half-truths to fuel outrage. Justice isn't blind because of bias. It's blind because of people trying to blindfold it with misinformation. Judge, representatives, maintain order. Continue, but direct your remarks through the bench. Jim Jordan nods. Your Honor. If oversight means ignoring wrongdoing because it's politically inconvenient, then the term has lost all meaning. Equal justice doesn't mean selective prosecution. I've seen emails, sworn testimony, communications showing how certain officials were shielded. Americans aren't fools. They see the rot. Jasmine Crockett, voice steady but intense, and I've seen the same tactics used to delegitimize every institution that dares hold power accountable. You can't scream corruption in every direction and expect credibility. Oversight loses meaning when it becomes a performance of outrage, not a pursuit of truth. Jim Jordan, performance, you sit there defending a Justice Department that's failed to apply the law equally. Look at protests, for example. One group burns cities and gets called activists. Another trespasses and faces decades in prison. That's not equal justice. That's ideological sentencing. Jasmine Crockett snaps back. You're comparing lawful protest to insurrection. Don't twist words. Peaceful protests are protected by the Constitution. Coordinated attacks on democracy are not. That's the difference between civil rights and civil chaos. Jim Jordan, coldly tell that to the business owners whose livelihoods burned while politicians tweeted slogans. Equal justice isn't selective empathy. Jasmine Crockett, firmly, and tell that to the officers beaten defending democracy while some politicians pretended they were tourists. Equal justice means accountability for everyone, not selective outrage when it suits your base. The judge sighs, interjecting with control. Judge, I will remind both representatives that the purpose of this hearing is to examine systemic fairness, not to relitigate past protests or political rallies. Please proceed with relevance. Jim Jordan, with respect, Your Honor, that's exactly the point. The system itself is tilted. Agencies that should protect the people are punishing dissent. Oversight shouldn't be about defending government. It should be about defending citizens. Jasmine Crockett, and what do you think I'm defending? The people, especially those who don't have political megaphones or billionaire donors. Equal justice isn't about who shouts loudest. It's about who gets silenced. You defend those with power, I defend those crushed by it. The audience murmurs. The courtroom feels like it's tilting between ideology and outrage. Jim Jordan, you talk about the powerless, but every move your side makes centralizes government control. Censorship under the banner of misinformation. Surveillance in the name of security. The founders didn't design this country for bureaucrats to decide what truth is. Jasmine Crockett, rising slightly, and the founders also didn't design it for conspiracy merchants to distort reality for profit. Oversight is supposed to check power, not feed paranoia. You think shouting deep state solves anything. It only weakens faith in the very republic we both swore to protect. Jim Jordan, I'm not shouting deep state. I'm exposing one. When bureaucrats can decide which speech is acceptable, when evidence disappears, and when political opponents are treated as threats, oversight isn't optional, it's survival. Jasmine Crockett, pounding the table. Oversight isn't survival when it's used as a weapon. You've turned hearings into ambushes. You subpoena witnesses, smear them on live TV, and call that justice. It's manipulation disguised as moral outrage. Judge, firmly order. Representatives, the rhetoric may be passionate, but this chamber will not devolve into chaos. Both of you resume your composure. Silence for a beat. Both breathe deeply. The tension is so thick it hums. Jim Jordan, softly, leaning in. The truth isn't chaos, Your Honor. It's uncomfortable, but it's real, and America deserves to know why their justice system no longer feels equal. Jasmine Crockett, quietly but with fire in her tone, and America deserves leaders who don't weaponize their anger into division. Oversight is sacred. It's how we preserve democracy, not how we poison it. The judge leans forward, eyes narrowed. Judge, I've heard enough grandstanding. This hearing is about one core question, whether oversight is still serving justice or serving politics. Both of you claim to protect the Constitution, yet neither side trusts the other to interpret it. That's a crisis of faith far greater than any single scandal. A long pause. Both representatives sit back, slightly humbled by the judge's gravity. Jim Jordan, After a beat, then let's restore faith by exposing the truth wherever it leads. Jasmine Crockett, nod slowly, and let's restore faith by grounding truth in facts, not fear. The gavel bangs. Judge, very well. The court will reconvene for the next session. Oversight in action. Accountability vs. agenda. This hearing stands adjourned until the next hour. The crowd rises as both lawmakers exchange a brief, icy stare. Cameras zoom in, two figures on opposite ends of the same table, both claiming to fight for justice, both unwilling to yield. 1 hour later. The courtroom reconvenes. The gallery is packed, the atmosphere dense with expectation. Reporters are whispering predictions. This next round will explode. The gavel drops sharply. Judge, this hearing resumes under the theme Oversight in Action. Accountability vs. agenda. Representatives, you've both made accusations. Now we'll move to evidence, testimony, and direct confrontation. Representative Crockett, you may begin. Jasmine Crockett stands slowly, papers in hand, composed yet burning with focus. Thank you, Your Honor. I want to remind this court that oversight is not a weapon of revenge. It's a constitutional responsibility. We cannot cherry-pick facts or use our positions to feed partisan narratives. Accountability means everyone answers to the same law. Jim Jordan cuts in dryly unless their last name fits your party's donor list. Jasmine Crockett snaps back immediately. No, Congressman. Accountability doesn't care about last names, but your investigations sure do care about party lines. You've subpoenaed journalists, bullied civil servants, and spun conspiracy theories for headlines. That's not oversight, that's political theater. Jim Jordan, slamming his folder shut. Theater. You mean when bureaucrats stonewall and refuse to answer, when the FBI hides documents and DOJ officials redact every line of truth. I'm not putting on a show, I'm demanding transparency. Judge, stern Representative Jordan maintained decorum. Continue your argument, but with evidence, not accusations. Jim Jordan, fine, flips through his papers. Exhibit A. Sworn statements from federal agents claiming interference from higher-ups in politically sensitive investigations. These men risked their careers to expose favoritism. And what did the administration do? Suspended them. Silenced them. If that's not proof of agenda, I don't know what is. Jasmine Crockett leans forward, unwavering, in how many of those agents had financial ties to partisan organizations. How many were already publicly aligned with political media outlets? Oversight can't be built on half-truths from people with microphones waiting outside. Jim Jordan smirks. You mean the same media that cheerleads for your party every night? Spare me the sanctimony. I'd take whistleblowers with courage over pundits with scripts any day. Jasmine Crockett, courage without credibility is chaos. And you know that. Oversight loses power when we turn every rumor into evidence. Jim Jordan, oversight loses power when truth becomes inconvenient. Judge, enough wordplay. Representative Crockett, continue. Jasmine Crockett nods, regains rhythm. Your Honor, let's call oversight what it should be, a safeguard against abuse, not a stage for political vendettas. The congressman keeps saying he's fighting for equal justice, but equal justice cannot exist when you start every investigation with a presumption of guilt based on political affiliation. Jim Jordan, and it can't exist when your side pretends mistakes don't exist at all. You shield the powerful with polished press releases, while Americans lose faith in every institution. Tell me, where was your outrage when intelligence agencies lied under oath? When federal officers spied on campaigns? Jasmine Crockett cuts him off, her tone sharp and fast. I was here. in this very committee, demanding reforms, demanding checks, demanding oversight that works both ways. But you don't want reform, you want revenge. You don't want balance, you want chaos that you can televise. The crowd stirs, flashes from cameras erupt. The judge glares, the energy is almost uncontrollable. Jim Jordan leans in, voice dripping with challenge, and you want obedience disguised as justice. You call it reform when it benefits you, and obstruction when it doesn't. Jasmine Crockett stands, voice strong, I want truth. Truth backed by facts, not tweets. Truth verified by documents, not by emotion. You confuse noise with oversight, Congressman. The louder you shout, the less you prove. Judge, order. Representatives, sit down, both of you. They both obey reluctantly. The judge adjusts his glasses. Judge, oversight cannot survive in noise. The people deserve answers, not slogans. Representative Jordan, you claim bias. Representative Crockett, you claim misrepresentation. I'll ask both of you a question. What does equal justice actually look like in this era? A heavy silence. Both hesitate. Then Jordan speaks first. Jim Jordan, equal justice means every American, no matter their political beliefs, stands the same before the law. It means the government doesn't silence dissent, doesn't protect favorites, and doesn't punish opinion. It's about restoring trust in institutions that were never meant to serve political masters. Jasmine Crockett. After a pause, equal justice means protection from abuse, not privilege to abuse. It means the system defends the voiceless, not just the powerful. It means no committee, no politician, no billionaire donor can twist truth into propaganda. Jim Jordan, grimly nice speech, but you can't preach equality when your administration picks winners and losers in justice. Jasmine Crockett, and you can't preach fairness while you defend double standards for your allies. The tension snaps, both rise instinctively again, their voices overlapping. Jim Jordan, you call it oversight, I call it shielding corruption. Jasmine Crockett, you call it justice, I call it political revenge. Judge, slamming the gavel hard enough. Silence crashes over the room. Every journalist freezes mid-sentence. Judge, you both stand here claiming to defend the Constitution, yet both of you twist it for political gain. Oversight is not your battleground, it's the people's shield. If you destroy its credibility with partisanship, then neither side wins. The tension breaks slightly. Jasmine Crockett takes a breath, tone softening but still fierce. Jasmine Crockett, Your Honor, I agree. That's why I fight the way I do. Because I believe oversight is sacred. It's how we make sure no one, not even those in power, are above the law. Jim Jordan, quietly, and I fight because I believe government itself has grown too powerful, too unaccountable. Oversight isn't just about chasing corruption, it's about stopping government from becoming it. Judge, nodding slowly, then perhaps you both finally agree on something, that oversight must serve the people, not the parties. Both look at each other across the courtroom. The hostility softens, replaced by a quiet realization that their battle represents a deeper national fracture. Jasmine Crockett, genuine tone, the tragedy, Congressman, is that we're both claiming to protect the same people, we just don't trust each other's way of doing it. Jim Jordan, low voice, maybe that's the real crisis of oversight. No one trusts anyone anymore. The judge sighs, glancing down at the docket. Judge, this hearing will now move to closing arguments for today's session. Tomorrow's session, Justice and Truth in the Public Eye, will examine media influence and political spin in oversight investigations. He raises the gavel. Judge, until then, this court stands adjourned. The gavel falls. Reporters swarm the floor. Crockett and Jordan exchange one final, silent glare, not of hatred, but of unspoken challenge. The battle isn't over. It's evolving. The next morning, the hearing resumes. The courtroom feels charged like a battlefield after a night's uneasy truce. Reporters crowd the aisles, microphones ready. Every word today will ripple across the nation. The gavel slams once, echoing off marble walls. Judge, this hearing will now address justice and truth in the public eye. Both representatives will examine the role of media, political influence, and public perception in the fight for equal justice. Representative Jordan, you may begin. Jim Jordan rises, jaw set, voice sharp. Thank you, Your Honor. Let's get straight to it. The American people don't trust what they see anymore. Not the headlines, not the hearings, not even this courtroom. Why? Because truth has been hijacked by agenda. When media networks act as mouthpieces for one party, when selective leaks become breaking news, oversight becomes theater for ratings. He looks directly at the cameras. They call it coverage. I call it collusion. A government leak hits a friendly journalist. The next morning, that anonymous source becomes a headline that conveniently fits one side's story. That's not transparency. That's manipulation. Jasmine Crockett slowly stands, voice calm but cutting. Congressman, you talk about manipulation as if your side doesn't do the exact same thing. You've spent months feeding half-truths to talk shows that turn speculation into hysteria. You don't want oversight, you want outrage. You treat the truth like it's your campaign slogan. Jim Jordan snaps back. That's rich coming from someone who treats the press like a PR department. I've seen reporters text committee staffers before hearings, questions pre-planned, sound bites rehearsed. That's not journalism. That's political choreography. Jasmine Crockett raises an eyebrow, and I've seen your media allies twist facts until they're unrecognizable editing footage, cutting testimony, splicing narratives. You weaponize perception, Congressman. You understand the game, make it look like chaos, and the truth drowns in the noise. Jim Jordan leaning in, voice hard. The only reason there's chaos is because the system's been corrupted by silence. If we had honest journalists, half these hearings wouldn't even be necessary. Jasmine Crockett fires back. Honest journalism doesn't mean agreement with your world. It means facts, not filters. But when facts don't favor your side, you call it bias. That's the oldest trick in the book. The audience murmurs. The judge raises a hand. Judge, order. I will remind both representatives that this is not a press conference. Continue your remarks through the bench. Jim Jordan nods curtly. Your Honor, equal justice cannot survive without equal truth, and truth can't exist in a media ecosystem where one narrative dominates. The public deserves full context, not curated outrage. Oversight loses meaning when journalists become referees of politics instead of witnesses to it. Jasmine Crockett responds smoothly, and yet, Congressman, you use that same media ecosystem to advance your own investigations. Every time you send out a subpoena, you announce it on live television before the ink dries. That's not transparency, that's theater. You don't want justice. You want a headline. Jim Jordan. Coldly, maybe the people deserve to know when their government's hiding something. Jasmine Crockett. Or maybe they deserve representatives who know the difference between evidence and entertainment. The tension tightens like wire. The judge lets the silence hang before speaking. Judge, let's examine this concept of public trust. Both of you claim to fight for it, yet both seem to contribute to its erosion. Representative Crockett, how do you restore confidence when every oversight action looks political? Jasmine Crockett pauses, then steps forward with conviction by showing consistency, by holding everyone to the same standard regardless of their title, their money, or their network. Oversight should be boring. It should be methodical, factual, quiet. The fact that it's become entertainment tells you everything about what's broken. A hush falls. Even reporters hesitate. Jim Jordan, narrowing his eyes, Oversight can't be quiet when corruption is loud. Silence protects the guilty. The people deserve drama if that's what it takes to wake them up. Jasmine Crockett turns sharply. No, Congressman. They deserve integrity, not melodrama. The louder you get, the less they listen. And when everything is a scandal, nothing is. The crowd reacts, murmurs, flashes, shifting tension. The judge strikes the gavel once for silence. Judge, Representative Jordan, respond concisely. Jim Jordan, gritting his teeth slightly fine. I'll say this. The real danger isn't noise, it's narrative control. When government and media align, dissent becomes dangerous. You can call it oversight. I call it soft tyranny. Jasmine Crockett, slamming her hand on the table. Tyranny. You sit here defending billionaires, defending corporate interference, and then you cry about tyranny. You don't want freedom, you want favoritism. Jim Jordan, rising to his feet, you think freedom is letting unelected bureaucrats decide truth. You think justice is letting big tech censor Americans while your side claps. That's not freedom. That's fear dressed as virtue. The judge stands, voice booming. Judge, enough. You both claim to defend the Constitution, yet neither can speak without accusation. The question isn't who controls the narrative, it's whether either of you still believe in the existence of objective truth. Silence, the echo of his words lingers. Then Crockett breaks it softly. Jasmine Crockett, quietly, almost reflective, objective truth still exists, Your Honor. But it's fragile. It doesn't survive in echo chambers or in shouting matches. It survives in evidence. It survives in courage. Jim Jordan lowers his tone. Still fierce but subdued, truth isn't fragile. It's buried, and oversight is the only shovel left. Judge nods, considering both. Then perhaps the real fight isn't between oversight and politics. It's between truth and manipulation. He pauses, looking to the gallery. Judge, America watches this courtroom because they see themselves in it, divided, disillusioned, desperate for honesty. But oversight will mean nothing if both of you keep performing for cameras instead of serving the people who put you here. The camera pans across both faces. Crockett's eyes glint with restrained emotion. Jordan's expression hardens, but not without a flicker of doubt. Jasmine Crockett, softly, almost whispering, maybe the only thing left we can agree on is that the truth is worth fighting for, even if we're fighting each other to get to it. Jim Jordan, measured, with reluctant respect, then let's at least fight honestly. The judge leans forward, lowering his voice. Judge, good, because the next session will demand honesty. Justice in practice, power, accountability, and the people. That will determine whether either of you believes in oversight for justice's sake or for control. He slams the gavel. Judge, this court stands in recess. The audience rises. Crockett exhales, staring at the empty chair before her. Jordan gathers his papers, glancing her way. No words, just mutual awareness. The war of ideals continues, deeper now than before. The next afternoon. The courtroom lights burn brighter. Tension hangs heavy, not just political, but philosophical. The crowd knows this session could decide the legacy of the entire hearing. The gavel slams once, crisp and commanding. Judge, this hearing reconvenes for justice in practice. Power, accountability, and the people. Both parties have spoken about oversight and truth. Now we discuss what justice looks like in action. Representative Crockett, begin. Jasmine Crockett, rises slowly, measured but resolute. Thank you, Your Honor. Justice, in practice, isn't a slogan, it's sacrifice. It means telling the truth even when it cuts through your own side. It means admitting that power corrupts everywhere, not just across the aisle. Oversight is supposed to be a shield for citizens, not a sword for politicians. But right now, it's become both weapon and wound. She turns toward Jordan. Congressman Jordan says he's defending the people, but which people? The ones who look like him, vote like him, fund him. Justice doesn't work like that. Equal justice means the same rules apply even when it's your own camp under scrutiny. That's what separates oversight from revenge. Jim Jordan stands immediately, voice clipped but fiery. Spare me the sermon, Congresswoman. I'm defending all Americans, not just the ones that fit your talking points. The working men and women who can't afford lobbyists, who can't bribe a headline, who feel the system's been rigged for decades. I'm not defending power, I'm defending the forgotten. Jasmine Crockett. Sharply, then defend them with truth, not theater. You parade whistleblowers, cut clips, and ignore context. You don't fight for justice, you perform it. Jim Jordan steps forward. I perform it because nobody else will listen. The bureaucracy has layers thicker than armor. Oversight is the only crack left to shine a light through. You call it theater, I call it survival. Jasmine Crockett. Voice rising survival for your political career, maybe. You think you're holding power accountable, but you're just shifting blame, building narratives instead of solutions. Judge interjects sharply. Representatives, direct your remarks through the bench. They freeze, but the energy remains electric. Jim Jordan, through the judge now, calmer but defiant. Your Honor, oversight should fear no one, not presidents, not prosecutors, not parties. If the law doesn't apply to everyone, it applies to no one. And right now, too many powerful people walk untouched because the system protects its own. That's not oversight. That's collusion. Jasmine Crockett. Steady, but her tone cracks slightly with emotion. Your Honor, I agree that no one should be untouchable, but I also believe oversight can't become an endless witch hunt. Justice isn't vengeance. You can't claim to protect democracy while poisoning faith in every institution that holds it together. The rule of law can't survive if every verdict is treated like betrayal. Jim Jordan. Firmly, and it can't survive if the people believe the law has favorites. The words hang between them, heavy, real, undeniable. Judge leans forward. You both raise a core dilemma. How can justice be equal when every investigation looks political? How can the people trust oversight when oversight itself is divided by ideology? A long pause. Both hesitate, neither wants to give ground. Jasmine Crockett. Slowly, by consistency, Your Honor. By refusing to weaponize oversight for headlines or vengeance. By protecting truth, even when it's inconvenient for our own allies. That's how we begin to rebuild faith. Jim Jordan, quietly, and by refusing to ignore abuse, no matter who commits it. Oversight isn't supposed to be polite. It's supposed to be relentless. Jasmine Crockett snaps back. Relentless doesn't mean reckless. Jim Jordan, and polite doesn't mean powerless. The judge bangs the gavel hard. Judge, enough, both of you sit. They obey, but their eyes stay locked. Judge, Representative Jordan, you've accused the Justice Department and federal agencies of bias. Representative Crockett, you've accused your colleague of politicizing oversight. Let's put those charges to test. What does each of you propose, not to win, but to fix the system? Crockett pauses, then answers with conviction. Jasmine Crockett, Transparency, real transparency. Every investigation should have independent oversight beyond party lines. Whistleblower protections without political filters. Public disclosures of political donations for committee members to ensure neutrality. Justice should not depend on who's asking the questions. Jim Jordan nods slowly, acknowledging her point fair, but transparency alone won't fix corruption. We need decentralization, fewer unelected officials making political decisions. Power has to flow back to the people, not sit in the hands of bureaucrats who think they know better than the voters. Jasmine Crockett, quietly, and what happens when those voters are fed a diet of disinformation, when truth itself gets auctioned off to the loudest voice. Oversight can't serve the people if the people no longer know what's true. Jim Jordan, measured, eyes locked on hers, then maybe the real oversight we need is cultural, over the truth, tellers themselves. Jasmine Crockett, bitter smile, you mean the journalists your side keeps attacking. Jim Jordan, I mean anyone who lies for influence. Left, right, media, government, no exceptions. Jasmine Crockett leans in, then start with your own colleagues who flood hearings with half-truths and edited videos. You can't clean one house by burning down the neighborhood. Judge cuts in, tone like steel, both of you, stop shadow boxing with sound bites. Tell this court, what is justice to you, in one sentence each. The silence that follows is deafening. Cameras zoom in. Both seem momentarily stripped of politics, just two Americans wrestling with an impossible question. Jim Jordan, after a long pause, justice is when the powerful fear the law as much as the powerless do. The courtroom murmurs in surprise, even some of Crockett's aides nod slightly. Jasmine Crockett takes a breath, eyes steady. Justice is when the powerless believe the law protects them as much as it protects the powerful. The judge studies them both, eyes narrowing as if weighing something deeper than argument. Judge, perhaps justice is both fear and faith in equal measure. The words linger like scripture. The audience is silent, listening, absorbing. Jim Jordan, softly, almost human now, maybe the tragedy is that fear's the only part that still works. Jasmine Crockett, gently, but with resolve, then maybe it's time to rebuild the faith. The judge looks out over the crowd. Judge, you both speak of rebuilding. But rebuilding requires surrender, surrendering ego, agenda, and self-interest. If oversight is to mean anything again, it must become service, not spectacle. He turns to the cameras. Judge, this hearing, this courtroom is not theater. It's a reflection of the chaos the nation lives in, divided between suspicion and loyalty, between justice and judgment. If you both truly mean what you say, then prove it, not with speeches, with actions. He slams the gavel. Judge, this chamber will reconvene for its final session. Equal justice, the verdict. The gavel echoes like a drumbeat. Crockett and Jordan exchange one last glance, not of hatred, but of weary recognition. The war has tested them both. The crowd erupts into discussion as the cameras fade to black. The courtroom is packed to the brim. It's the final session. Cameras hum. Reporters lean forward with pens trembling over notepads. The nation waits. The judge enters, his robe flowing like a shadow of authority. The gavel slams once, twice, 3 times. Judge, this hearing resumes for the final session. Equal justice, the verdict. We've heard arguments, accusations, and ideals, but justice is not words, it's choices. Today, those choices meet their reckoning. Representative Crockett, Representative Jordan, proceed. Jasmine Crockett stands, hands folded on the podium. She looks visibly drained but composed, her voice carrying both fatigue and fire. Jasmine Crockett, Your Honor, throughout these proceedings, we've spoken about oversight as if it were a tool. something we can wield at will, but oversight isn't just a political mechanism, it's a mirror, and that mirror reflects us. If we use it only to punish opponents and protect allies, we distort it until the truth becomes unrecognizable. Equal justice isn't about who wins the argument. It's about who remains honest when no one's watching. She glances at Jordan. Congressman Jordan says he fights for the people. I believe that, but I also believe that the people deserve more than anger. They deserve answers. They deserve balance. Oversight without truth becomes chaos. And chaos doesn't serve justice, it devours it. She steps back, silence. Then Jordan rises tall, rigid, like a man stepping into the storm. Jim Jordan, Your Honor, I won't deny that this fight's been messy. It's been loud, ugly, and uncomfortable. But democracy is uncomfortable. Freedom doesn't come neatly wrapped in bipartisan ribbons. You call me angry. You're damn right I am. Because I've watched government agencies abuse power with no accountability. I've watched Americans lose faith in justice while politicians argue semantics. Oversight isn't about comfort. It's about confrontation. He leans forward, lowering his tone, but Representative Crockett's right about one thing: the mirror cuts both ways. If I demand accountability from the left, I have to demand it from my own side too. If we don't hold everyone accountable, then oversight becomes theater, and the people become props. Judge, nodding, intrigued, a rare moment of agreement. Continue. Jim Jordan, with raw intensity, equal justice means no exemptions, not for presidents, not for prosecutors, not for politicians wearing my badge. That's the America I still believe in. Jasmine Crockett. Quickly then let's start living it. Let's stop pretending that justice is something we can score points with. Every time we turn hearings into headlines, we chip away at the foundation of the system we claim to protect. The judge leans back, fingers steepled. Judge, so you both agree the system is broken. The question is, who broke it? Jasmine Crockett, firmly all of us. Jim Jordan, after a pause, every one of us. The judge exhales deeply, his tone softening. Judge, then the verdict today isn't about guilt. It's about responsibility. He rises slowly, his presence commanding absolute silence. Judge, equal justice cannot exist where truth is negotiable. It cannot survive in a nation that treats facts as opinions and oversight as warfare. You stand here, both of you, not as enemies, but as reflections of a divided country that has forgotten one simple truth. Justice belongs to no party. It belongs to the people. He gestures toward the gallery, the faces of ordinary citizens watching. Judge, they are the verdict. Their faith or their fury will decide whether oversight is worth saving. He sits. The silence is electric. Then, breaking it, Crockett speaks softly. Jasmine Crockett, Your Honor, may I ask something, not as a politician, but as a citizen? Judge, proceed. Jasmine Crockett, how do we rebuild faith when the people don't believe in the law anymore? When every ruling becomes political theater, when every truth feels filtered? Judge, thoughtful, you start with humility. Justice doesn't demand perfection, it demands honesty. Admit the bias, expose the flaws, and then keep fighting for fairness anyway. Jordan shifts, visibly moved despite his defiance. Jim Jordan, maybe that's what equal justice really means, not a perfect system, but a system that refuses to quit, no matter how flawed its keepers are. Jasmine Crockett smiles faintly, then maybe for once, we're on the same side. A murmur ripples through the courtroom, a moment of shared silence between opponents who have spent hours tearing each other apart. The cameras zoom in. The judge speaks again, voice low but heavy with finality, "Judge, the verdict of this court is not a punishment, it is a reminder. The greatest threat to justice is not corruption or ideology. It is cynicism. When the people stop believing oversight can work, justice dies quietly, without witnesses." He picks up the gavel, holds it for a long moment. "Judge, let this hearing stand as proof that debate, even fierce and unrelenting, can still serve the truth when guided by conscience. Representative Crockett, Representative Jordan, you've fought hard, and you've shown that oversight can still bleed humanity." He slams the gavel once, final and echoing. "Judge, court is adjourned. May this nation remember, equal justice is not given. It is guarded by every citizen who still believes." A collective hush follows. Reporters type furiously. The crowd begins to rise. Crockett exhales, visibly emotional. Jordan nods to her just once, a rare gesture of respect. Cameras flash like lightning as the two walk out side by side, not allies, not enemies, but reluctant defenders of the same fragile idea. Outside, the courthouse steps overflow with protesters and supporters. Microphones thrust forward, voices roar. Who won? Who's guilty? What's next? But inside the courtroom, the echo of the judge's final words lingers, a solemn echo beneath the noise of politics. In the end, there was no clear victor, only a truth reborn through fire. Oversight and equal justice are not trophies to be claimed, but torches to be carried, heavy, flickering, and eternal. Fade out, the courtroom empties, the flag flutters quietly. Justice uncertain, battered, but still alive.